Okay, guys. Thank you all for joining me. Today this is our second webinar in our series of COVID-19 small business support. My name is Ketan Makwana, and today I'm going to be talking to you about adopting a progressive attitude and mindset towards your business during COVID-19. The functionality within Zoom will allow you to raise your hand and ask questions. There's a Q&A function, so feel free to put any questions there. If you're watching this live, you can answer questions on the Facebook Live as well. We've got a stream going on that side, and I'll be picking up questions from that as well. So what can I say? Let's start with the fact that we are currently in turmoil. You know, there's a mass cyclone approaching. I guess there's a big storm with what COVID-19 is doing. It's disrupting pretty much everything in the way we live, the way we work, the way we do business, etc. But I want you to understand and realize right from the outset that COVID-19 is just like any other type of disruption that's happened to us in our times. And I want you to think back to other disruptions, you know, things like the 2008, 2009 recession, the economic recession. Prior to that, there were times in the 80s, if you were old enough to remember those as well. There are always going to be periods of disruption, and if you see them as, or these periods of disruption as things that are going to impact you negatively, then you are going to, by and large, not be able to keep up, maintain, or even survive through these disruptions. You've got to also have a perspective that actually these disruptions have an opportunity, or is an opportunity for you to do something, to force a change. But really, right now, a lot of people are feeling pretty much what this image kind of represents right now: emotional stress, strain. There's this whole thing around, how are you going to survive? How are you going to earn money? How are you going to to continue supporting your families and loved ones? And I've been speaking to a lot of business owners over the last couple of weeks, and I'm getting a sense of people feeling deflated, people feeling quite distressed, a little bit kind of depressed. Businesses that they've worked hard for to build up till now look like they're on the face of failure, or they're having to postpone the kind of things that they wanted to do in their businesses, and the best laid plans are now gone to waste and RE in that respect. And there's also news like coming up today. I mean, and again, I've spoken about how much you should and shouldn't pay attention to the media. But today, there was a news article that was printed to say that, or suggesting that, 1/5 of small to medium businesses in the UK will fail or go under within the next 4 to 6 weeks if these financial packages aren't sorted out. All this kind of stuff adds to perspective. It almost makes you think and see things from a particular way, and that within itself can actually be quite a problematic thing, because as I said yesterday on my Facebook Live, everything we see, the way we see that, has an intrinsic relationship with our attitude, and our attitudes shape our behaviors and actions. So I know there's some of you here that are online today on the webinar that have businesses, or you're currently kind of self-employed, or you have you've only just started a business, or you've been losing clients. You're having to look at thinking about shutting down your business. I want you to bring up any questions that you have. Anything that you want me to sort of take you through and guide you through with a bit of advice. But this webinar that I'm doing today is going to cover some areas of how you should be thinking like a business owner in these times of disruption. It's important to understand that everything has an opportunity built within it, but are you looking at things in the appropriate way? Are you giving an opportunity, the opportunity or a chance to actually be come up and show you where you can kind of take advantage or create something new for yourself to do? Now, when it comes to lockdown and having quite a solid or stiff mindset, and that's what happens with perspectives, it comes down to three particular things that I say, and that's the first one's panic, the second one's the first one's pain, the second one's panic, and the third one is fear. I think a lot of us have been feeling the pain. It's the COVID-19 disruption, how it's come on, the magnitude and the scale of which it's kind of coming through. It's been very painful. And I need you to understand that pain is a mental blocker. It's a little bit like how when you stub your toe on the corner of the sofa or your bed stand or something like that. That pain is excruciating, and you're standing around hobbling, you're holding your little toe in your hand, and but you're not thinking about anything apart from the pain that's just in your toe at this moment in time. You're not thinking about what you're gonna have for dinner. You're not thinking about what are you going to post on Facebook or something like that. At that moment in time, it's completely to that area where that pain sits. And that's the thing about the human psyche. We are wired to focus onto our pain. But the thing is, pain is a natural blocker. It stops you from thinking. But pain is also temporary. So just like when you stub your toe, eventually you slowly start to get movement back. You start walking, and eventually you start to forget that you had stubbed your toe and that pain was happening, and that allows you to continue doing whatever it is that you need to go on and do. And that's the same pretty much in business as well, or in general life. In terms of a perspective and an attitude, if you carry on and hold on to pain, what's happening to you, how much that pain is hurting, etc., it's going to stop you. It's going to render you unable or disabled to think. That means that you're not going to give yourself the allowance to be able to bring up any other perspectives or any other opportunities. So remember that, pain is something that will stop you from thinking, but pain is temporary. But it's only temporary if you allow it to be temporary. If you hold on to things, you will never come out of that trap. It's always important to understand that, yes, loss of customers, loss of business, even loss of relatives, loss of lives, loss of income. These things are all painful, but they're temporary. At the end of the day, we're all going to die eventually, whether we go today, tomorrow, or well in the future. But for every death in the world, there is also someone being born. For everything that we have done and leave behind, there is another generation that will take the mantle and move forward. So there is a constant cycle of things when it comes to loss in this particular way. So pain is the first thing that I want you to kind of really think about, and what I mean by that is that understand that it's temporary. It will go away only if you let it to. Stop holding on to what you're losing or what you've lost. It's gone. You've got to forget about it. The next thing is panic. I think there's when people panic instills the loss of control. So whilst pain you lose your ability to think, panic brings this whole ability of loss of control. You see this in, when people hyperventilate, you've got to re-regulate their breathing, but they're losing control of their respiratory functions at that moment in time. Don't want to talk too much about respiratory functions during the COVID-19 stuff, but the essential thing is panicking doesn't do, again, anything for you. And again, your mind is playing a lot of tricks on you at the moment. You're watching the news, you're reading these things, you're hearing negative things, you're thinking, you're seeing what's happening to other people. You've got this kind of pain about the potential loss of your business and things like this. And, how are you going to be able to maintain particular things? And that builds up this kind of level of panic. But panic, when you panic, you lose control, you freeze. In fact, you become so tunnel visioned with things when you're panicking, that only that particular thing that you're focusing on is the thing that can empower you. So, if you are in a state of panic and you're losing your ability to maintain your respiratory functions, guess what? Your respiratory function will focus itself into more and more sort of dismay. But there is something strong about panic. And if we can work a way of reversing how we panic and use that focus to be able to drive in other ways, what you tend to do is become more focused, more stubborn, more resilient, more resolved. So just like in the state of panic, when someone needs to have their breathing re-regulated, what they do is you give someone a paper bag and you get them to breathe into it and you get them to slow down what they're doing. It's the same thing you've got to do here. In the state of panic, stop panicking. But the word stop panicking can actually make you panic more. So what I want you to start thinking about, or what I want you to start doing, is actually slowing down a little bit. Slow down, and start thinking about the things that you can do rather than things that you can't. Because right now it's going to be, oh my God, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. Rather than that, start thinking about what you can. Well, what is it that I can do? What is actually happening around here? How much of this is really impacting me? How much do I have that other people don't have at the moment? Slowly start to bring it back to a point of control, because at the end of the day, to move forward in life, you have to have control. You can't go into forward in life or in business with panic and pain. You've got to use these two drivers as something that's going to be able to manifest you into thinking differently and doing things differently. And the third one in the mix is actually fear. And you've heard the acronym before, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. Well, it's true. False evidence does appear real. We overconsume ourselves with these kind of thoughts that this is what's going to happen. You somehow automatically, when you are experiencing pain and panic, start to build this whole world that doesn't exist. Your creativity juices start to build this whole movie set of, well, this is how it's going to happen, and this is what's going to go on to me, and this is what I'm not going to be able to do, and this is how it's going to work. When you're needing to actually future proof and future plan and start thinking about these things, you don't do that. But when you add fear into the mix, it's kind of easy. But what's going on when you're fearing something is you're actually creating a world or episodes or a thought pattern, or engineering something that's not real. It's just in your head. At the end of the day, things will happen. There will be natural disasters. There are going to be economic disasters. There are going to be human deaths. There's going to be political disasters. There's going to be wars that will carry on. There's going to be climate impact changes and stuff like this. So at the end of the day, if we don't embrace and understand who we are, what we can do, where we can go, and what we should be doing, and start to live in this kind of fair world, what will happen is you'll slowly start to move away from being able to actually do anything at all. You'll live your life in fear. It's going to be quite difficult for people after the lockdowns start to sort of move forward, or we start to come out of lockdown, because they're used to having a life in a particular way. They're still social distancing is still going to have to be there. So people are still going to have this kind of fear complex. I'm not saying you've got to go out and be maverick, but you do need to start to address your fears. So one of the other things that I need you to go away and do when you're sitting here is, rather than watching the news and feeding your fear, feeding your pain, feeding your panic, sit down and start thinking about what is it that is currently happening to me, what's happening around me, What are the things that I can actually do? What are the things that I'm good at? What are the things that I can create an impact with? And start to kind of push forward in the fact of, how can I take steps in these actions? What do I need to do to get out there and take steps in these actions? Stop thinking about things from a fear complex. And what you'll start to see is, as you focus on your steps ahead, you'll start to alleviate your panic and gain more control of what you're doing. But at the same time, you'll also forget the pain that's going on. Pain, panic, and fear. 3 things that create a rigid mindset. That rigid mindset will go onto lockdown. That lockdown will mean that you will then only see one perspective, one point of view, which means that your attitude to life and the things will actually change and be infected by just that one perspective, which means that your behaviors and your actions will. So what you're doing today to yourself, your future self is not going to thank you for, because you are moving and changing the direction of what your future is going to look like. I want you to remember, everything we hear is just an opinion. Even what I'm telling you today, it's an opinion. It's not fact. Okay. Everything we see is a perspective. It's not the truth. And what I'm trying to tell you here is that just because the media says something in a particular way, or an expert says something in a particular way, it doesn't mean that you've got to hold on to the whole of what we're saying. It's your responsibility to validate the information. It's your responsibility to ensure that the perspective fits within the criteria of reality for you. So, I mean, looking at what Marcus Aurelius says and looking at the image that we have on the screen right now, you can quite easily see perspectives change based on where you're standing. One side looks at 4, the other side looks at 3. Who's right? At the end of the day, no one. At the end of the day, no one can be right. We can only broadcast information. We can only broadcast data. It's your responsibility to process that data in a way that's going to enable you to move forward. Means that you move away from getting into that mode of pain, panic, and fear again. But remember, you don't take everything, verbatim by the written law and rule. Everyone is different. Everyone's situations may look the same, but are very different. The way I experience COVID-19 and the way you're experiencing COVID-19 could be similar in the fact that we're business owners and we're struggling with contracts or businesses, we're losing money or whatever it is. But the way I handle my pain, panic, and fear, and the way you handle your pain, panic, and fear, completely different. Okay, it's not because I'm more experienced and you're not. It's just because I look at something and say, there's more than one answer to this. So even if you're telling me this is the only thing, I'm sure that there are other ways that I can do things as well. I'm just giving you a solution to a plethora of different solutions. But are you open enough? Are you open enough to start looking, start thinking differently, starting to say to yourself that actually, you know what? This is right. This is the way I do it. And this is the way I should be doing it. Some people in society feel like, it's too harsh to be so direct. But actually, in times of uncertainty, direction is probably the strongest thing to have. It's like that beacon of light that comes out of a lighthouse to show where land is. It's the same thing with where it is that you want to go with your business. Just because the world is currently suffering, and you're not alone. You're not the only one that's suffering in business this way. You don't need to you don't need sympathy. You need to empathize with yourself and the fact that, okay, I'm not the only one that's suffering in this environment. What is it that other people are doing? Get a perspective. I'm not saying that you follow that, because it's not true. Get a perspective and start listening in, start getting advice, start connecting with other people, and start to understand what other people are doing. I mean, yes, on one side, I could say to myself, doing these webinars and things like this is one way of keeping myself busy and keeping my mind sane. But actually, it's doing a lot of more than just that. It's actually allowing me to become someone that I've probably wanted to be for a long time. But then I've said, I've had an imposter syndrome and said, no, you don't want to, you're not going to be a broadcaster. You shouldn't broadcast. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. You focus on what you're doing best, which is kind of strategy stuff. It's also helping a community of people kind of, feel that they are part of something. Maybe them breaking down that resilience of pain and fear that they have and saying, well, at least someone here understands where I'm coming from. That's 1% of change, which is dramatic with what that can do. And at the same time, it's reaching other communities that I didn't even know it's reaching. And now they're coming forward and saying, look, how can we work together? So I want you to realize that everything we hear is only an opinion, not a fact. It's your responsibility to create a truth out of that. Everything we see is a perspective, and it's not the truth. And it's your responsibility to ensure that you can empathize with the perspective, understand what is it that's been presented to you, and what is it that you can do about it. Because everyone has a genius and a superpower within them. It's your responsibility to find out. And small things make big differences. I said yesterday I showed you this in my post on my FB Live. If you watch this at all at that moment in time, opportunity is that, this kind of context, very simply, two things. Just one letter has changed in the perspective, but what it does in terms of negative, positive, optimistic, enthusiastic, downward spirals, is it opportunity nowhere or opportunity now here? Some people, when you first look at this, you'll see opportunity nowhere and then see now here. Because again, our psychology is built in a way, we're hardwired to look for negativity. We've talked about this as entrepreneurs before. Schools suck out the creativity of people, our children. No, because what it does, it's not just about the creativity it sucks. It's more of the fact that actually we're uniformed into reading and understanding particular things. The words law and rules kind of confine us, that you shouldn't and should behave in particular ways. We talk to our children more about how they should behave and what they shouldn't be doing, so there's always a negative connotation or a control piece. And in order to break free from all these things, you do need to be a little bit maverick. You do need to be a little bit brave, but you have to have this understanding and empathy within you that there is more than one answer to any one question. So if someone says this is the only way that life is and this is the only way that you can do things, I would never believe them. But that's me, because I have that perspective that there's more than one answer. And I know there are people out here thriving, during this kind of, and I'm not saying they're profiteering, they're thriving. They're highly energized, they're mobilized, they're doing things. And, this could be just by volunteering, in something, and that's making them feel great. They're actually spreading positive energy into their communities, which is moving things forward. There are others that are actually finding the jobs of their dreams. There are others that actually are now pivoting their businesses and seeing what they actually should have been in the business of in the first place. There are others like me that are saying, oh my God, I can be regular on Facebook and social media and do videos and recordings where I used to feel like I was no good at them. Can you see that there is opportunity in everything that we do? I need you to start to look from within and stop looking at what you currently have and don't have. There's nothing that you can control in the things that you don't have. Look at the things that you already have. Understand the skills that you have, understand the experiences that you have, understand and determine what is it that you are good at. And that's where you start. You start with something that you can control. When you can control that means that you'll become more and more powerful. You become more and more resolute. You become more and more focused, and it allows you to start taking those steps forward. Yesterday, in our webinar when I had Piers and Michael Jacobson, Piers Mummery, Piers Mummery said this one thing which was brilliant. He talked about this whole thing around accountability. Now, we were talking about that, about how do you stabilize businesses and protect them. And we got to the conversation about the importance of being accountable to shareholders and boards. And I asked the question, hold on a second, not every business or business owner is going to have a shareholder and a board that they're going to have to be answerable to. And what Piers came out with was really, really great. He said, well, do you know what? He goes, I know this might sound quite mad. But I actually have a conversation with myself. I would have a half an hour conversation as if I was the board to my business, and I would be having that accountability conversation. Now, yes, the perspective of other people will be like, oh my God, why would you talk to yourself? That's a bit madness. But actually there is some methodology behind that, because what he's actually doing is actually building accountability. Don't judge something just immediately because it sounds it's got lunacy attached to it. Sanity starts with insanity. So insanity is insanity. You've got to have something quite quirky, quite out there, which disrupts the flow, which will then create something new. It's a simple perspective. It's a simple perspective. And for me, I thought to myself, as again, I'm quite open-minded. I'm like, actually, that's not quite a bad idea. Having an internal board meeting with myself, hold myself accountable to particular things, because yes, we are in isolation, and entrepreneurship and business ownership can be a lonely world. But once you start to build that self-accountability, you can also start to be more clear about what you want to go and do when you connect with others, which means that clarity and that message gets through to other people quite quickly, and their perspective allows them to sort of buy into what you're doing, and that's how things start to grow. So when I was doing, when I looked at the situation with COVID-19, when we started to understand and get the mass of inquiries coming in about people struggling with finances, struggling with strategy, losing customers, for me, the most immediate thing that came to my mind was the perspective was suffering. People are suffering, but they're suffering in a perspective, in a way that they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do first. And that was gearing them into panic. That panic was then going to turn into a fear, and that fear and panic was going to create pain. So our response to that, my response to that was this. What you're actually experiencing right now is my response to that. And very quickly, I had to have that accountability chat with myself. I said, right, okay, you're committing yourself to this. Do you really understand what you're undertaking? You're gonna have to schedule 96 sessions. You're gonna have to build 96 sessions. You're gonna have to get the experts in for 96 sessions. You're gonna have to moderate these. You're gonna have to look at the content. You're gonna have to build all these different things. I didn't look at it in a negative way of saying, oh my God, these are the things that I have to do. I'm like, these are the things that I need to get on with. These are the things that I need others to come in and help me with. And then I sat there very quickly working out who, what, how, and when. And quite quickly getting into the network and sharing that perspective got people like Piers and Michael and all these others that had joined us so quickly. In 2 weeks, we've been able to assemble a 24-week roster of 96 sessions. Anything's possible, not if you put your mind to it, but if you believe in the perspective or you have an open mind to know that even that's going to change. Even some of the sessions during these 24 weeks may change. Even what we deliver and how we deliver it may change over these. I'm open to that. And because I'm open to it, it means that things start to work the way they want to. Now, I don't care. I do not care if it's just one person that joins or 100 people that join or 10,000 people that join. The most important thing is that I'm here doing what I can do best right now. It keeps me moving forward. My opportunities will start to grow. And as I mean by opportunities, yesterday evening, I was contacted by the Chilean government and also the South African government. And we're looking at how we can start to support them on similar platforms. Opportunity grows where energy flows. So I want to wrap up this section of the webinar just telling you that your mind is a powerful thing. It needs elasticity. It can't be rigid. You need to learn things and unlearn things. It's important that, there are things that in order for you to learn new things, you need to create a capacity of stuff where you're chucking a little bit out. It's a bit like a hard disk. When the hard disk is coming to be full, you're either going to have to add another hard disk. I don't know how we're going to put another brain in your head, or you're going to have to unload some of the stuff that's already on there. Now, I'm not saying that you've got to sit there unlearning everything, but it's unlearning the things that haven't served you anymore. There is so much stuff in your head you're holding on to, thinking, right, at one point in life, this is going to serve me. It's not serving you. Get rid of it. Move along on that side and start to build in more and more practice of powerful, productive, positive, and purposeful thinking. Who are you? What superpowers do you have? What are you really good at? What do you really enjoy? And where is it that you can make your best contributions and impact? And believe me, when you start talking yourself up and in to the things that you can do, you'll be able to create the kind of stuff that you see other people have, and what you're aspiring to. Being part of something is just as good as being the person that conceives and conceptualizes it. I've started something today. Doesn't mean that I have to be the forefront of it all the time. I'm happy for that. It makes me proud to feel that I can do something, contribute something, maybe help something around the world, because karma has a way of running things back to us. Do something purposeful today. Make yourself feel good and make an impact in your local community. It's doing more positivity in just more than one area. Believe me, you will feel much, much better than you do today. Stop wallowing in the fact that you're losing clients and start focusing on, okay, well, if I've lost those, there's probably, there's 7.7 billion people on this planet. I'm sure we can find more clients. But okay, do we want the same type of clients? Do we need to change our service model? Do we need to look at different business? Do we actually need to calm down and maybe focus into one specific area of service delivery right now? We're talking about things we can do rather than I don't know where I'm going to find them from, or why would they want to come to me right now, or how are they going to afford to buy my services? That's all limiting. That's all tactic. That's learning without unlearning. And remember, the power of value exchange is interstellar. At the end of the day, it's not all about money. The guys, the experts that I'm working with, not one of them has come forward and says, well, okay, how much are you going to pay me for this session or anything like this? But what's actually happening behind the scenes is unheard of. The amount of now the connectivity and thinking about what type of stuff we could do collaboratively in partnership that could go back out and have an economical impact, positive impact on businesses, and at the same time produce commercial viability in the future is amazing. When you step away from making it all about money and making it all about yourself and making it all about what you're going to receive, you'll see the value exchange. Working in each of our geniuses, we can start to create new things. It's amazing. Let me tell you something. It's amazing how COVID-19 has shown all these big companies, like your Dysons and all these other companies, the Rolls-Royce, etc., have been able to turn their business model around to start producing ventilators, or a fragrance company or a brewery can make hand sanitizers. How the hell do you change your business model that fast? We talk about that whole pressure, focus and fold. It just shows the potential, but you've got to have that perspective in the first place. This hasn't been done from an opportunistic perspective from Brewdog or Rolls-Royce or Dyson. Their primary objective is to supply because they've been asked to supply. Okay. The next thing about this is now the consideration that, do we have a future market in this once the pandemic and the lockdowns and the isolations and everything are over? It's amazing how value exchange works. So I want you to think about value exchange. What value do I have that's going to be value? What things do I have which are going to be incrementally of value to someone else? And what do they do that adds value to my proposition? 2 are better than 1, 4 are better than 2, and 16 are better than 4. That's how it works. And guys, it just takes one thing to change everything. Just one thing. We at Enterprise Lab, we're fortunate to have brilliant clients. We're fortunate to have brilliant experts that work with us and partner with us. We're fortunate to have great opportunities, but all these things have come through effective value exchange, being able to serve, understanding what we can do and do right, being part of something rather than trying to be the whole thing. But we too have to change in these current times. And the first thing that I have to change is the way that I'm going to approach this business during this period. And when you do that, it has a ripple effect on a number of things. It allows me to think more clearly about how I'm going to protect my team. How am I going to protect my clients? How am I going to protect my business? How am I going to build more business? Where am I going to do my business? What am I going to do my business in? We're moving around and changing even in our company. So it's important to understand that all it takes is one thing to change everything, because it's a ripple effect that happens. Right now, when you sit in your pain, panic, and fear, you're changing as well, but you're changing your future to something completely diversified to where you want to be. Then it's the kind of lost in wilderness. Then you've got the whole situation of, look, I just want to give up everything. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm hearing about so many people who are thinking about committing suicide now as well because of the current thing of isolation. And it breaks my heart, because all it is these guys need one thing, and it changes everything. I want you to look into your lives right now. After today's session, look down and think, what one thing can I change? Because you don't have to change your whole life. Just change one thing. If it means that you're grumpy like me all the time, smile a lot more. Just that one thing, that one smile makes all the more difference. Eventually, that smile that made a difference will start to make a change. That change will then change something else. That something else change will change another two things. And all of a sudden, everything around you eventually will change. So all it takes is one thing to change everything. Now, I said to you before, we're going to get thrown, life is going to throw challenges at us all the time. Curveballs, challenges, whatever you want to call it, whether it's viruses and pandemics, whether it's economic crashes, whether it's going to be people rebelling against certain things, war, whatever it is, life will throw it at us. Why? Because life is not a straight line. It's an absolute squiggle of things. Some of you may remember that in the summer of 2011, the UK had riots. The images that you see on your screen right now are just certain images that I was able to sort of pick up. I was watching, like quite a lot of people here in the UK, I was watching this all unravel, on the news, listening to the radio, reading newspaper articles. The media had one portrayal. I was talking to other people about things, and my perspective at first was very narrow and harrowing on the fact of what does the UK come to. Then it was really much around, oh my God, look at all the kids, the young generation just taking advantage. You've got gangs and you've got all of these cultures. That's a perspective. Then I actually, while talking to other people, started to open my perspective up, and someone told me that maybe this is young people just lashing out because they haven't got anything else. And I go, what do you mean? And I said, well, there are a million missing young people. We called them NEETs back then, not in employment, education, training. They weren't part of the system. They were missing, and so I kind of took different perspectives on and started to think about what is it that we could do, or what is it we should be doing. Now, I'm saying we, not even I at that moment in time, we needed to be creating some sort of form of response. We don't just push it on the government and just say, well, it's someone else's problem, they have to deal with it. If they don't do something, I can't do something. So a little bit like as you walk down a road and you see a bit of litter on the floor, and then you see a bin next to it. Are you the kind of person that walks past the litter and ignores it, but yet complains that there's litter on the floor? Or are you the kind of person that's going to pick it up, put it in the bin because of the values that you have? Well, these different perspectives for me got me thinking in different ways. And whilst this was going on, I started to strategize out something. I thought to myself, look, what we need is we need a way of bringing all of the ecosystems together. We need to be able to showcase to young people what opportunities arise. We need to be able to get the industries to have a look and see what young people can do. That's what we need to do. These are the things I'm thinking we need to do. And that came in the form of a plan to have a 2-day a kind of exhibition and event. Then came the whole situation of that's the what. Then it was like the who, right? Who's going to do all of this? Because I don't really know how to run events. I'm good at, finding people. I'm good at probably making programs. So I can design a program that can be running at the event. So I went out and I found someone that has experience in building and managing events, and I partnered with them. And then I found someone else that could do web graphics and design, and I partnered with them. And then I thought to myself, I need now the industries to start coming through. So I started to call different industries, and industries weren't really paying attention. Their perspective was very much the fact of what they'd seen on TV or in the news. And they thought, young people don't want to be involved. Young people, they're going to create harm to our brand. No one was paying attention because of 3 things. Number one, because their perspective was tunnel vision. Number two, they've got this random stranger contacting them and saying, get involved and do something with me, and they don't even know who I am. And the third thing is they could not see the value that they would be providing. See, when you've got that kind of perspective line sitting like this, I was more open. I had a 360-degree perspective on what was going on. I empathized. I understood what businesses were scared of. I empathized with the young generation. I empathized with the government. I empathized with all of the different stakeholders. It was then that I believed that I needed to find some other influencers that could help me push and narrate this forward. I got the Prime Minister involved, but it took me 6 months to get to the Prime Minister. In April 2012, I was invited to go and meet the Prime Minister, and I didn't get to meet the Prime Minister initially. I met someone else. But you've got to take your opportunities as they come, and when you're driven by something, you are determined by something, the opportunity will represent itself and you can grab it. So even though I was invited to Downing Street to share my project and my initiative, etc., and I spent an hour with someone, literally that afternoon, within that period, I was then invited to a reception where the Prime Minister was going to be. So, some people just say it's your tenacity that gets you there. I think, we also build a little bit of luck, but you've got to be open-minded and have that perspective ready to go, because sometimes your 15 seconds of fame passes you by. And actually that happened twice on that day, because later on in that evening when I went to the reception and I actually was face to face with the Prime Minister, I was literally starstruck to a certain extent. I just went, oh. And as he was about to leave and my 15 seconds of fame were passing by, I grabbed his arm in Downing Street. My body wrote a check that it couldn't cash. I thought at that moment, but I thought it's this time or never, and I made that choice. I took the action, and I pulled him back, and in 45 seconds, I gave him the pitch of my life. I told him what we wanted to do, and I told him how he could support us. In July that year, in 2012, he wrote a letter to me. In 3 months, we raised £250,000 through sponsorships, through stand sales, seminar sales, whatever it was, and we created Youth Enterprise Live. Youth Enterprise Live in October 2012 impacted 18,500 young people. We gave £750,000 to young people to start businesses. So 150 new businesses were started in that period. 150,000 were invested in social projects. I mean, 100 new social or local community programs run and designed by young people were created. 3,000 apprenticeships were on offer in 300 jobs. And this was all given in 2 days. I'm not telling you this to make you think, wow, what an achievement. I'm trying to tell you, look how powerful it is when you have perspective. Look how powerful it is when you don't fear something, when you understand what you're good at and what you can do and how others can help within this. Although this was a brainchild of mine, without other people, I couldn't have got to this position and this state. And don't forget what it does to elevate you in your future. So after doing Youth Enterprise Live and nearly killing myself in the action of trying to do it, I was asked to come back to Downing Street. And it was at that point where I thought maybe they're going to arrest me for manhandling the Prime Minister in his own backyard. But actually, I got to meet the Prime Minister and I sat down with him and he said to me, he goes, "You're really disruptive." He goes, "I like it. And we need more people like you working in what we do." And I got offered the opportunity to be a special advisor on youth policy. Not a big role, but it's an important role. I was allowed to come in and start to help shape how youth policy was going to moving forward. Big. You just don't know what's going to come. Now, the job didn't have any remuneration to it, but who cares? I can, you know, whatever I'd done here had impacted here. It didn't just work for me on the fact that today, you know, at that stage, I was now working with the UK government and Number 10, but the international side of my career just absolutely shot off. And the preceding 2 or 3 years, I was traveling the world, working with different governments and ministries. And my business today would not even be a fraction of what it is unless I would have done what was happening at Youth Enterprise Live then. And remember, I'm trying to explain to you how perspectives and attitudes can change the way you do business and what you do your business in. My business has evolved because, and it's changed from, you know, basic training to consultancy to now project management, to be working in so many different levels, in so many different arenas, where even there are times where I still think to myself when I'm in these rooms, I'm like, imposter syndrome. What the hell am I doing here? I'm surrounded by government officials or leads of countries around a table, and they're asking me for my advice. You can get yourself anywhere you want to. It's only you that's holding yourself back. And why? Because you refuse to look at things from a different perspective. So lucky people get opportunities. You may say, hey, you're lucky. You know, Chilean government, South African government contacting you, you might be lucky. They say brave people take those opportunities. You know, you're a fool if you're given an opportunity. Richard Branson said it one time, you know, just say yes and figure it out on the way, you know. But in my mind, winners are those in the face of adversity that make opportunities. Look, we've created COVID-19 small business support in the face of adversity. I'm not saying no one else is doing anything. I'm doing what I can do. I'm not comparing myself to anyone else. I'm not in competition with anyone else. In fact, I'm trying to reach out to those kind of guys and say, hey, do you want to be involved? And what are you doing? And, you know, can we be involved with you? Because the more we are connected, the wider we become, the more intense we become, the more people we can connect with, the more lives that we can help and change and save. Not like what the media said this morning, 1/5 of businesses in the UK will fail because the banks aren't lending money. So isn't it better to actually turn around and say, well, this is what we should be able to do? Give some productive options rather than just slating everything and saying, well, things aren't happening fast enough. Aren't you someone that can make a difference? Making a difference in your own life first is like putting your own mask on first so you can go and help others. I had to change my perspective to be able to build projects. I had to look and have an open mind in my perspective to make sure that my attitude towards things remains the same. I'm up at 6 or 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, first immediately coming in, looking at how I can promote, looking at the people that have messaged me from the night before. Basically, I'm doing Facebook Lives at 6:30 in the evening to 7 o'clock, where I'm trying to keep the momentum rolling and encourage people to come forward with stories here. Why? That's my attitude, but my attitude and behavior are shaped by my perspective, because I know, I've seen that the more we do these kind of things, the better it's going to become. And my actions are are equally measured by my behavior and my attitude. So if you're not getting the results that you want in life right now, that's because you're not doing the right things. And you're not doing the right things because you don't have the right behavior or attitude towards whatever it is that you want to do. And if you don't have the right attitude or behavior, that's because you just refuse to see it from any other way than the way that you see it. So it's your time to lead. These are the things that I want you to do. I want you to have a 360-degree perspective. I want you to really just know and understand that there are more than one answer to any one question. So anything that you see, anything that you hear, anything that you read, understand it, empathize with it, and know that there is more than one side to this story. There are probably 7 sides to it. Can you go and find another one? Because the more you start finding different perspectives, the more your mind will start to open. The more you will start to become more grounded to the way that you will think. I want you to empathize with things. Don't sympathize. The world doesn't need sympathy right now. The world needs people to understand what's going on. You see, it's all hearsay when they say, oh, the banks aren't doing this and the government's not doing that and this isn't going here and why haven't we got PPE and all of this kind of, people are just throwing stuff around. But they're begging for sympathy. But actually the world needs empathy. You need to empathize. You need to understand what's going on. Take your time, ask difficult questions to yourself. Just like Piers said in yesterday's seminar, hold yourself accountable to particular things. Are you having enough conversations with yourself? I know it sounds madness, but are you having enough conversations? And if you are having enough conversations, are you having the right conversations with yourself? Do you really understand what's going on? Because if you say yes, then I think you're running down a false line. I personally believe no one can fully understand anything and everything. You've got to continuously be building your knowledge about things, which means you have to unlearn and learn things at the same time. In the environment that you find yourself in, it's better to come back, slow down, and start to identify the things that you can do. Even the things like with COVID-19, you know, this business support, with Youth Enterprise Live, with any of these kind of initiatives and projects and stuff like this, the mind of a business leader or someone who owns their own business, you need to start with what you can do. What are you good at? Because there are certain things you are. Some people are good at numbers. Some people are good at sales. Some people are good at strategizing. Some people are good at design. Get back down to that, the root of where is it that your genius is and the things that you can do. Then ask yourself, what are the things that you should be doing? Because trying to juggle 5 things at the same time and maybe 4 of those things you're not really that good at, it's not going to help you right now, because that's what you're going to start to allow stress, depression, deflation, and everything start to come back into your head. Stay in the path where you know you do your job really well. Because at the end of the day, when you start to introduce more people, the people you're introducing are fitting into the things that you're not that great at. And together as a team, you're going to start to produce some really great stuff. And when you see those kind of results, it will inspire you. It will drive you. It will push you. I'm going to bed at night with my mind buzzing about what I want to talk about tomorrow, you know, the next day, or how excited I am that I'm going to get an opportunity to start creating things for other economies around the world. Connect with others and collaborate. Believe me, this is the time more than ever. If we're stuck in our homes, we should be using our opportunities to connect more. I've got people now connecting randomly from LinkedIn saying, we've got synergies, can we connect? I will have a conversation with everyone and anyone. I'll give them all the time of the day. How much we connect and what we do is determined by that conversation. And I'm also open to the fact of how much are you committed if I'm committed. You know, if you know, and I appreciate that some people can only commit a certain amount of things, but if they are true to what they want to do, and if they are doing it for the right reasons and the right kind of ethics, then I'm all for it. So, you know, in this world, business still needs to survive. We still need to make money. So, you know, we're still going to have to market to people. We're still going to have to visibly put our brand visibility to people, we're just going to have to do things in a slightly different way. It's not just about being sensitive, it's about being empathetic. I think it's really, really important. No matter what you do, keep talking yourself in. Keep talking yourself in. You will sit there and you think, oh my God, why did I do this? Keep talking yourself in. Yeah, you know, the amount of people who will start to question and get that imposter syndrome is crazy. It takes a little while for things to click and register in. It takes a little while for things to happen. You can't put a Facebook post up if you're not, you know, if you haven't got that much following, you haven't been doing a lot of Facebook posting, and then get like 100 million likes to it. And what you're doing is you're comparing yourself to other people who get 100 million likes to things, but you don't understand that these guys are in there day in, day out. They spend hundreds of thousands on sponsored adverts, and they position themselves. The time and the energy and the commitment and the blood and the sweat and the tears that they put into everything. You've got to keep talking yourself in. People will come to you and they say you shouldn't be doing this. Keep talking yourself in. When the world comes back and says to you, do you know what? We're going to throw lemons at you. You know, keep talking yourself in. If it's a situation where you've carried high expectations and you've had a low delivery result, keep talking yourself in, because whatever you're doing right now, you're doing it the right way. It's just organic. It takes time. A seed doesn't grow overnight. It takes time nurturing for it to grow into a plant and then flower its fruits, etc. It's the same thing that's going to happen here for you. You have to keep talking yourself in. And remember why you started. Remember why you started all of it. If it all comes to pot, you know, if anything, and you need to motivate people around you, just remember why you started it all in the first place. You know, all of you out there have a special power. All of you have a superpower. You all have a genius spot. It's your responsibility to find it, understand in it, believe in it, and then know that you are a fit for something somewhere in the world. But you have to go out and find it. The opportunities are all there. They're all there for you. You have to go and find them. They won't come to you. You have to go out, tread through stuff, and get through that adventure and journey and find it. So don't focus on what's going wrong. The world will want you to think about everything going wrong. You know, let me just give you one simple example. Right now, the media talk more about the number of deaths, but have they reported how many lives have been saved? How many people have recovered? Why not actually give that news as much as stuff? What's going right in these people that they're recovering? Because in that is probably an answer of how they can start to help those that are actually contracting this virus. It's just a little bit of invert thinking. Think slightly differently. Ask that question. And always remember, there's more than one answer to any one question. Find your superpower, define it, hold on to it, and get out there and start using it. So if you're a good talker, there are loads of people right now that need, you know, maybe you can an NHS volunteer and, you know, be on the helplines, you know, conversing with elderly and vulnerable people. Are you a good salesperson? You know, maybe it's a situation of you've got to get, you know, you can start using your powers to get other people onto into different communities and support functions. Are you a good strategist? Maybe it's time you start to go and help other people save their businesses. These are the things that one can think about. If you want to be part of something, stand up and ask. You don't have to wait for permission. It's better to beg for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Right now, the world doesn't need you to be polite. The world needs you to be doing something. That's the most important thing. So the last thing that I want to leave with you is this slide. 86,400. 86,400. Now imagine this. Imagine you go to the ATM. Well, let's say you can't go to the ATM right now anyway, but let's say you could go to it. You put your card through, you put your PIN in, you check your balance, and all of a sudden there's an additional 86,400 in your bank account. Don't think of today's current situations. What would you, and if I ask you the question, what would you do? Your immediate response usually of most people is going to be of surprise. Then there'll be a little bit of concern or a little bit of misunderstanding or confusion. Usually most people will think to themselves, there's maybe some error here. Even if they try and withdraw some of that money, what they're going to do, they're going to spend it. The next day you go back to the ATM, you put your PIN in, and there's another 86,400 in there. Now you're thinking, well, something's really wrong. And let's say for the next 5 days, you see every day there's 86,400 going in. What would you do? Most people would spend. They'll spend, they'll spend, they'll spend, they'll keep spending until they've consumed so much that then they'll start thinking about investing. They'll almost think about the money that I have, I can make more money with. Well, in life, a day consists of 86,400 seconds. And I want you to ask yourself, am I spending or am I investing? Because if you are spending, it's okay. You can spend. But if you're investing, you know that you're going to create a net return of value of your sanity, of your pride, of the things that you want to go ahead and do, where you no longer ever have to compare yourself to someone else or feel that you're the only person in the world that has this that are suffering from a particular thing, or that you have a particular pain or a panic or a fear. Spend the time by investing in talking yourself in and realizing that there is something great within you that you can go out back into the world and offer and supply. And if that means that you've got to change your business, if it means that you've got to change what you're in the business of, if it means that you have to close your business and go back to work, if it means that you have to close your business, go back to work for a little while and then reopen your business, whatever it takes, do what you have to do, because a survival mentality will never get you anywhere. But understand this, that you need a 360-degree perspective to create a 360-degree attitude that will give you a 360-degree behavior that will enable you to take all the actions to receive that 360 degree of success. So look, I really appreciate you all coming on today. If you're watching this on a recording, I hope you found some inspiration or some information in and guidance in what I've shared with you today. I'm only one person. There are so many other people out there that have similar stories and similar things to say to you. And what I want you to do, if I can ask, is keep connecting with people. Keep building your network. It's your network that's going to help you as you go through these troubling times. Know that you have something unique and special about yourself, and don't ask for permission, beg for forgiveness. I hope to see you again on one of our Facebook Lives or our webinars. There are a number of new webinars coming up in the coming weeks. Later on this afternoon, we have Nick Howe from NatWest, Carl Reeder and Piers Mummery joining us as we start talking about the financial solutions that are going to be made available and what financial planning should look like in your business. So stay safe, stay well, and stay connected. Thanks a lot for your time today.